question many people are asking is whether fascism is returning to Europe. Let's discuss this now. In Berlin for us is Frank Hansel. Frank is a member of the German parliament. He's with the right-wing Alternative for Germany, AfD party. Here in the studio is Valerio Bordonaro. Valerio is an advisor to Italy's former Prime Minister, Enrico Letta. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on to the programme. Frank, let's start with you. We're talking about Armistice Day, 100 years since the end of the First World War. How does the AfD party itself, not you necessarily, your party, regard Germany's participation in both world wars?
Well, of course, the mother of all catastrophes in the world wars, World War I and World War II, were a catastrophe for Europe. This is no doubt about this, and it has to be regretted. But what we today face, I think, we cannot compare this situation neither to 1918, neither to 45. We have a completely different situation. We have a stable European system of international law. We have a Europe which has grown together. And we now see that this Europe is sort of beginning to fall apart due to certain policies which were made in Brussels and go against the national sovereignty and self-determination of the European peoples and countries. This is something completely different, and I think there is no comparison to be done regarding to World War I or the end of World War II.
Okay, that's interesting. You've immediately brought it to where we are in 2018 now, but are you actually saying that you feel more bold and able to express your right-wing opinions, fairly extreme right-wing opinions, because you feel that it's not the same situation as it was 100 years ago and Europe is not going to go to war if you say all of these extreme things that your party says? Is that what you're saying?
Well, our party does not say extreme things. We opt for self-determination within a Europe of fatherland, like de Gaulle said. I don't see any really right-wing or right-extreme thesis which we have in our party, in the mainstream of our party. There are always some voices, sometimes that are scandalized in public and on the media, but our program is center-right, and we want a Europe. We are not anti-Europe, but we are European skeptic towards the European Brussels bureaucratic project, which will be which is supposed to be like the United States of Europe. This is something different. This was not meant to be when the European Union started in the in the 60s. So I would deny completely that we in Germany will face a sort of fascism. Our party, at least, is filling up a representation lack of the center-right, which is the problem of Angela Merkel, who turned the Christian Democratic center-right party to the left, and this is all about it. And I think this we have to be looking very, very fond that there's no. I think Germany is the least country where you can talk of the danger of fascism. The least, really.
Valerio, how do you see that? Because it was my impression, and the way independent analysts look at the AfD, they say it's pretty right-wing. Frank is denying that.
Yeah, the point is that today we have a great news arriving from Germany. So the right-wing German party is denying any, is supporting Europe, is supporting the international system of laws. It's great. I can say that we cannot talk anymore about this because Germany is saying that, or this German party is saying that no problem at all, no risk of fascism. But, you know, I don't trust him. Of course, I trust the gentleman here, but I don't trust these declarations. The facts are really different nowadays. We see it in Italy, in Germany, and other countries in Europe. There are similarities in the context and in the main aspects of these parties. Verbal violence, for example, just to say something, or you know, the politicization of masses, being in a context just after a terrific momentum. It was the war in 1918, and now it is the economic crisis. There are many similarities, and I don't really trust what he said now, because it's not true. They are anti-European.
Frank, no one's accusing the AfD necessarily of being...
if you see...
No, go on. You carry on.
Okay. Why have we come into existence, and why have we become the third political party in Germany? because we understood that the European single currency, the euro, the European currency divides Europe. We have the problems in the south. We have one lost generation. We have high rates of unemployment for the youth. We see that the economic system with one single currency doesn't work for Europe. And Mrs. Merkel and the euro rescue policy has divided Europe. This is a big problem that we face, and we didn't want it, and we don't want this. This is a problem. Germany has no economic problems. They will come when we have to pay one day for all of this. But for the moment, the German economy really runs well. And this is why we will not have even further positive pulse, because we are so well in the German economy that there is no fear for mass protest. We see the problems of self-determination, that a lot of legislative power is going to Brussels, and this is something legitimate because international law, one of the basics of international law is the self-determination of the peoples. And this is in danger due to the Brussels project of the United States of Europe.
Frank,
that's all.
The economy aside, what about how you regard your fellow human beings? What is the AfD's position on migrants coming to Germany?
First of all, we were the first party in 2013 when we came to existence that we need migration, we need immigration due to the demographic problems we all face in Europe. From Russia today to France to Spain, we have a big demographic problems and we need migration, immigration. But this has to be controlled, and that's why we opted for the Australian or Anglo-Saxon system of integration and immigration, people who really can do something for the economy and for the social system. What we see is a mathematical theme, really, financial thing. If you have open borders and you have 1 million people coming in, and then probably 5 or 6 million come in the next 2 or 3 years, or 7 million, what is really some planned by some ideologists, I would say, then we can see that the financial stability of our social welfare system will collapse. It's a mathematical equation, nothing else. We are not xenophobic, we need migration, we need this, but we cannot allow that our national law and our constitution is broken, because we have an asylum law, but this was broken by the Merkel government, letting everybody in. It's not possible for a nation to allow that about 600,000 people, like in 2015, entered the country where we don't know where they come from, where they are, and what they want to do, and who they are. They just throw off the papers and the documents and said, now we are here and you have to support us. This is a problem, and it's legitimate to say no to this.
Frank, you sound like a very reasonable man when you talk like that, but then there are people who are on your side of politics on the right, okay? However extreme that right wing is, and you say that you're not particularly extreme with the AfD. Viktor Orban, Valerio, he says the Muslims are coming to Europe to destroy Christianity. You have Geert Wilders talking about the same kind of thing. You've got Donald Trump in the United States talking disparagingly, using swear words about African countries and saying, I'd rather have immigrants coming to my countries from nations like Norway. All of this divisiveness certainly does not help create any sort of togetherness. It just creates division in the whole world.
Yeah, it does, of course. But you know, these people are trying to destroy what we did in the last 70 years. Of course, we did mistakes, I agree. But indeed, we did a great job if we are not in the conditions of 1945, 1946. And these people are trying to destroy everything using, you know, conspiracy theories and fake news. You know, they represent the world and the world leadership as, you know, the devil in the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil, men of wealth and taste around when the Kennedys or the Tsar were killed. It's crazy, you know, they are using conspiracy theories and fake news to influence people that unfortunately are not able to respond.
Nothing to do with us.
Okay, I'll come back to you in just a moment, Frank. The word populism. Matteo Salvini of Italy, he calls himself a populist. Viktor Orban calls himself a populist. Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil calls himself a populist. Alberto Fujimori in Peru used to call himself a populist. Is that the new word for fascism?
Well, maybe, I don't know. The point is that fascism is a political doctrine and is very linked to history. And in history, you know, time and space is the most important thing. It's a little bit dangerous, you know, to use the term fascism because, you know, we risk to give to these people, and, you know, allow me the term and the adjective, a noble pedigree, or just to reject our very correct criticism. So I would not use for sure fascism, but there's still similarities, a lot of similarities. Maybe populist is the new term.
Frank, if you don't mind, can we go back to the point that we're trying to mark here today, 100 years since the end of World War I?
Yes.
Because, as you know, the Treaty of Versailles, it imposed these huge reparation bills on Germany, which in 1921, that bill stood at, in equivalent of today's money, more than $400 billion. So people say that the rise of nationalism in Germany came because of the Treaty of Versailles. When you see that rise of nationalism in Germany back then, leading up to the Second World War, do you feel some sort of understanding to the people of Germany who eventually let Hitler get away with everything he got away with?
Well, there's two things. One is that the reparations, and as you probably know, these reparations which paid the German Reich to France went all to America because the United States really paid for the credits which helped the armament of the French in the First World War. The problem is the world financial crisis in 28, which really brought unemployment in the fatal way in Germany. And I also would like to make people understand the historic fact that the Nazi party never won their majority. They came into power because some of the right-wing bourgeois government said, we put this guy into our government and then we see how we can get rid with him. This was a mistake from their point of view, but the Nazi party never had a majority and came not into power due to a majority of the votes of the people. I think this has to be also kept in mind when we talk about these times.
Time is always short, gentlemen. Valerio Bordonaro and Frank Hansel, thank you very much for joining us.